We have come to accept that just about the only thing that seems to be constant in this day and age is change. But we sometimes don't spend enough time thinking about how to manage change. My report will focus on the supervision of school change and how this affects school success. Among the different researchers, Michael Fullan is one of the most noteworthy when it comes to educational change. He is the author of the best selling book, The New Meaning of Educational Change. This perennial bestseller shows us how to develop collaborative cultures at the school level while avoiding superficial versions of professional learning communities. It also integrates individual and systematic success, which is a rare feat in today's school reform efforts. According to Michael Fullan, leaders have to provide direction, create the conditions for effective peer interaction, and intervene along the way when things are not working as well as they could. Any significant change or innovation requires individual implementers to work out their own meaning. Significant change involves ambiguity, ambivalence, and uncertainty. In any change, assume that conflict and disagreement are fundamental and inevitable. Effective change takes time. It takes a minimum of 2 to 3 years to see an effect in change. Persistence is a critical attribute of a successful change. According to Fullen, the possible reasons for lack of implementation are inadequate resources, insufficient time, and value rejection, among others. In understanding change process, school needs a plan. The complexity of change makes it impossible to bring about a widespread reform in a large social system. Progress occurs when we increase the number of people affected. Based also on his book, Fullan said that in effecting school change, no amount of knowledge will make it totally clear what actions need to be taken. Decisions are a combination of intuition and on the spot decision making. And changing the culture of a school is the real agenda, not just implementing the single innovation. Guskey in 1995 presented the guidelines of success in implementing school change. First guideline is to recognize that change is both an individual and organizational process. An important lesson learned from the past is that we cannot improve schools without improving the skills and abilities of the teachers within them. In other words, we must see change as an individual process and be willing to invest in the intellectual capital of those individuals who staff our schools. Next guideline is in planning and implementation, think big but start small. There is no easier way to sabotage change efforts than to take on too much time at one time. In fact, if there is one truism in the vast research literature on change, it is that the magnitude of change persons are asked to make it inversely related to their likelihood of making it. Third guideline is work in teams to maintain support. The discomfort that accompanies change is greatly compounded if the individuals involved perceive they have no say in the process or if they feel isolated and detached in their implementation efforts. For this reason, it is important that all aspects of a professional development program or of a school change be fashioned to involve teams of individuals working together. Guideline number 4, include procedures for feedback on results. If the use of new practices is to be sustained and changes are to endure, the individuals involved need to receive regular feedback on the effects of their efforts. It is well known that successful actions are reinforcing and likely to be repeated, while those that are unsuccessful tend to be diminished. Next guideline, provide continued follow up, support, and pressure. Few persons can move from a professional development experience or any school change directly into implementation with success. In fact, few will even venture into the uncertainty of implementation unless there is an appreciation of the difficulties that are a natural part of the process. Guidance, direction, and support with pressure are crucial when these adaptations are being made. Next is integrate programs. More so than any other profession, education seems fraught with innovation. In fact, innovations seem to come and go in education about as regularly as the seasons change. Each year, new programs are introduced in schools without any effort to show how they relate to the ones that came before or those that may come afterward. Furthermore, there is seldom any mention of how these various innovations contribute to a growing professional knowledge base. The result is an enormous overload of fragmented, uncoordinated, and ephemeral attempts at change. Over the last 50 years, chaos theory has evolved as a new science which assumes that the natural order is irregular, discontinuous, and erratic, based on Gleick in 1987. Newtonian physics implies that there is a rational order to everything, that we can predict the events of any system if we are able to plug in enough variables. The idea of behind the chaos theory is that we can predict what systems might do, but we cannot be sure. Everything exists as a series of possibilities. The three principal conditions for a chaotic system are that it operates in a nonlinear way, that it is iterative, meaning the output of one cycle becomes the input of the next, and that small variations in initial conditions lead to large differences in outcomes. Many systems within educational organizations appear to meet these conditions. First is nonlinearity. In a linear system, there is a simple cause and effect relationship. A causes B, which causes C, and so on. However, in a chaotic system, it is nonlinear. A may not necessarily cause B at all times. Lots of variables come into play and interact with each other. A classic example is this. In school A, the purchase of new computers might have a positive impact on student achievement, while in school B, this might bring little or no gain in student achievement. Complexity. Chaotic systems take complex forms, making their precise measurement difficult if not impossible. Different measurement tools have been put in place to evaluate and compare the performance of a school. However, due to the complex nature of schools, none of these assessment methods seem to measure precisely the school performance and have very limited validity for the following reasons presented by Cunningham: that prior achievement of learners is not taken into account, and this is a major factor in pupil achievement at a later stage. Schools are differentially effective in different subjects and with pupils of different ability, which is not reflected in a single figure. Schools change over time. However, the achievement data used reflects only one group and is essentially historical data. Next is student mobility between schools, which is not reflected in the assessment. And last are the social factors, sex of students, ethnic origin, and social backgrounds, which are not taken into account. These factors are out of the school's control. Next is the butterfly effect. The butterfly effect means that a small and seemingly unrelated event in one part of a system can have enormous effect on the other parts of the system. Theoretical meteorologist Edward Lorenz made the term butterfly effect famous when he argued that a butterfly steering its wings in Beijing today could unleash powerful storms in New York City next month. One implication of sensitive dependence on initial conditions is the impossibility of predicting not only next year's weather, but the long-term future of any chaotic system, as stated by Glickman in 2001. In terms of school improvement, what we understand from the butterfly effect is that it is impossible to predict the long-term effect of school improvement efforts. Planning is a chaotic system, like a school should be a medium range rather than long range. Formal planning in an unpredictable system needs to focus on process rather than the product, with the goal of producing a stream of wise decisions designed to achieve the mission of the organization. Fractals. A fractal is a geometric shape that is similar to itself at different scales. For example, a mid-sized branch of a tree is remarkably similar in shape to the larger branches from which they come. Smaller branches, in turn, are the same shape as the mid-sized branches from which they come, and so on. Through work with fractal generations, it has become apparent to scientists that predictability does exist, and randomness plays an important and unexpected role. What has been learned is that within chaotic and seemingly unpredictable system, structures of order exist through which the system recreates itself. Complex social systems can also reveal self-similarity on different scales at each level of the system. Specific patterns of organizations and culture reappear. Like fractals in nature, schools reveal self-similarity in different scale. For example, a school-wide staff development day or a department meeting, a classroom lesson, and a halfway interaction between a teacher and a student might all reveal the same cultural characteristic. Thus, according to Glickman, reflective inquiry at the school, team, classroom, and individual level can help educators better understand their school culture, change needed, and pathways to improvement. By being reflective practitioners, teachers can develop their teaching skills, acquire more insightful experience in their fields, and learn to look problems from a different perspective. Feedback mechanisms. Chaotic systems contain feedback loops enabling outputs to feedback into the system as input. Feedback can bring stability or turbulence to a system. For example, a thermostat is a feedback mechanism that causes temperature stability. Feedback in schools can take the form of a student performance data, survey results, quality circles, third-party reviews, and so forth. The important thing is that meaningful data on the results of change efforts be made available to teachers and that they be given opportunities to reflect on the data and redirect their change efforts accordingly. There is a growing effort to apply the knowledge of organizations toward the improvement of schools. A primary concept in this knowledge base is that of culture, the intangible, pervasive elements which represents the organization-wide pattern of getting things done. As defined by John Safier and Matthew King in 1985, school's culture as a structure, process, and climate of values and norms that channel staff and students in the direction of successful teaching and learning. They presented the 12 norms of school culture that contributes to instructional effectiveness of the school: collegiality, experimentation, high expectations, trust and confidence, tangible support, reaching out to the knowledge bases, appreciation and recognition, caring, celebration and humor, involvement in decision making, protection of what's important, traditions, and an honest, open communication. Of the different changes presented, one of the important change a school must look into is changing the conditions of teaching, away from teachers as technicians who just transmit mandated curriculum toward teachers as professionals who make professional decisions about curriculum, instruction, and assessment, away from overload of students, time, and expectations toward manageable class student loads and expectations, away from physical and psychological isolation toward collaboration and professional dialogue, away from bureaucratic regulations and paperwork toward democratic school communities, away from policies that blame teachers for the problems toward policies that value teachers as part of the solution, away from teaching as an unstaged career with minimal extrinsic rewards toward teaching as a career in which teachers are given opportunities for growth and leadership, and away from diversity as a combination of colors and symbols towards making schools centers of democracy, inquiry, and dialogue. Change is indeed inevitable. As the saying goes, to exist is to change. The rapid changes and increased complexity of today's world present new challenges and put new demands on our education system. There has been generally a growing awareness of the necessity to change and improve the preparation of our students for productive functioning in the continually changing and highly demanding environment. In confronting these challenges, it is necessary to consider the complexity of the education system itself and the multitude of problems that must be addressed. Clearly, no simple, single, uniform approach can be applied with the expectation that significant improvements of the system will occur.